Welcome to Photoshop in Practice, Episode 1, The Absolute Basics. You're watching VSGFX. Today we're starting from absolute zero in Adobe Photoshop Creative Cloud 2015.5, released June 20th, 2016. We're going to create an image to be used as song cover art for DJ and music producer DJ SULTAN. The skills and tools we're going to learn about are the following: creating a new document, importing with Adobe Bridge, file types and properties, smart objects, the move tool, the type tool, layers and layer styles, blend mode and rasterizing, rectangular marquee tool and final touches, and finally saving our image. I like to use keyboard shortcuts to speed up my workflow, so I'll be including those for both Mac and PC. So let's look at what we'll be creating. This image is made up of three main parts: the base image with the glowing characters, created by another artist for this project, the text, and the accent elements. To start, we'll need to open Photoshop. Once we've done this, a screen similar to mine should be on yours. The options here may be different, but that doesn't matter. To create a new document, go up to the File menu and click New with the left mouse button, or use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-N as in New, or Command-N on the Mac. We'll see a dialog box asking for details about our new document. We can name our new creation in the Name field. This information will be used as the file name when we save our document. Next, we'll have to tell Photoshop how large we want our, in this case, image to be, using the width and height fields. There's more than one way to describe dimensions in Photoshop, much like in real life. For example, in real life we may measure distance in feet, inches, meters, etc. In this case, we'll choose pixels, the smallest digital measurement on your screen. For width, we'll use 1500, and same for the height. This will result in a square image. Resolution has to do with how many pixels will be displayed per inch or centimeter. Typical screens are 72 pixels per inch, and if we're working on a document meant for digital reproduction only, meaning we won't be sending it to a press, this is the resolution that we want. Next is color mode, which basically denotes how many colors we will be using. 8-bit color is plenty for this project. Even at 8 bits, we have over 16.7 million colors we can use, more than the human eye can see. Color mode will affect the size of your image as well. Keep this in mind if you work at higher bit color modes. Background contents sets a color as the starting background. I generally leave this as the default white. Now we're ready, we'll hit the OK button and our blank document gets created. Let's look at the different areas of the program we will be using. We'll make sure we are in the Essentials workspace on the top right. This is the default in Photoshop. To the left of the screen we have our Tools palette. When you click a tool, you'll see additional options and information on top of the screen below the menu bar. Each tool has its own settings and features. To the right, we'll see a color picker palette with a black and white square. These represent our background and foreground colors we're currently working with. Below this, we may see swatches. We won't use them in this practice session, but they can be very useful. Below this is one of the most important panels in this program, the Layers panel. To understand layers, imagine looking down at a 3-story building from a helicopter per se. You see the top layer first, the roof in this case, then the third, second and first floor, and finally the ground level, which is like the background layer. Anytime we want to manipulate a layer, we have to make sure it is selected. Photoshop doesn't know which layer we would like to add to if you don't tell it. The background layer is always locked by default, but we can leave it like this because we'll cover it up with images. Now that we got the basics out of the way, let's import our first image. For this, we will be using Adobe's Bridge program, a robust media browser which works well in all of Adobe's Creative Cloud applications. It's a good habit to use Bridge for importing for consistency and speed. You can start browsing by going to File and clicking Browse in Bridge, or using the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-Alt-O or Command-Option-O on Mac. Once Bridge is open, we can navigate to a file we'd like to use. In my case, my files are ready to be imported. If your icons look different than mine, you can go to the View menu and select As Details. This comes in handy when you have an image in several formats and sizes in the same folder, since we can see file size, document type, document size, and color profile, as well as date created and modified. Right-click the file and select Place, and then in Photoshop in the submenu. This imports our image as a smart object, which is indicated by an X shape across the image itself. Before we take our next steps, let's take a moment to look at file types and their properties, because it will affect how our smart objects behave. There are several types of files that can store images on a computer, and they vary in features, size, and other properties. A popular file type you may have heard of is JPEG or JPG, acronym for Joint Photographic Experts Group, which are the most common on today's internet and devices because of what is called image compression. We won't get into too much detail about compression, just know that JPEGs are small, therefore easy to send in an email, use on websites or portable media. The downsides of JPEG files are quality loss due to compression, not being able to store separate layers, and transparency information. Basically, they're small and simple and can have only one layer. The second noteworthy file type is PNG, which stands for Portable Network Graphics. PNGs feature compression support as well, but its best feature is allowing for transparency information to be stored in the file. To understand transparency, just think of an image on painted glass, like a mosaic window of a church. Parts of the window, like the frame, are not see-through, but certain parts are. You can see outside, but the image is colored by the window's color in some places. There are many file types, but the last one I'll mention is PSD. This is the native format of Photoshop application. Of course, it stands for Photoshop Document. This file type is designed to store all information of your document, including layers and transparency. These files are not designed to be small, but rather for maximum editability. When you save as PSD, you basically save a master file of your work, which you can open and continue editing. Now that you understand the differences of three major file types, let's get back to smart objects in Photoshop. But what are smart objects? These are special layers which can be edited while preserving the original content of the image inside of them. Think of it as editing an image inside of another image remotely. Why did we discuss file types before smart objects? Because to use all the features of smart objects, only files with layer information should be used. I'll show you what I mean, and we can actually have Photoshop tell us about it. Take our recently placed image as example. I'll commit transform by pressing Enter on Windows or Return on Mac, or I can use the check mark on the top of the screen below the menu bar. This completed the import process and created our smart object, indicated by a small icon on the Layers panel here. We can edit our smart object without affecting our cover art by double-clicking the preview image in the Layers panel. This opens the image at full resolution on a new tab. Photoshop warns us with an information window telling us that we have to save the contents of our smart object separately so we can see the results in our main document. Now let's see what happens when I add a new layer. Because I'd like this image to be brighter, I'll open the Adjustments panel by clicking on the half empty, half full circle close to the color picker. If you can't see this icon, you can go to the top menu, click Window and choose Adjustments. Then I'll click the first icon, which is a sun shape. This allows adjustment of the brightness and contrast of our current image. Two things happen. A new panel opens with two sliders, one for brightness and one for contrast. We'll set the brightness to 70. This will make the bright colors even brighter, which is exactly what we wanted. The second thing that happened is that a new layer was added automatically above our current layer. So now our image has two layers, and since I'm happy with this look, I'll click File and Save, just like Photoshop told me to. But now a warning dialog pops up prompting us that Photoshop cannot save this file back to this format because it has more than one layer. Remember how we said that JPEGs can only have one layer? This is why when we use smart objects, we need to work with multi-layer files like PSDs, otherwise smart objects are pretty much useless. If we want to combine these two layers into one, we could, but again, this defeats the whole purpose, which is editability. Once we merge the layers, we can't take them back apart, they will just be one layer. All you need to remember is that for smart objects to have cool features, they need to be file types which support layers. So now I'll repeat this process using my prepared file, which is a simple PSD file containing the artwork on a layer. I'll go back to Bridge, right-click my PSD file and go to Place and then click in Photoshop. Again, I'll commit the action by pressing Enter or Return, then double-click my Smart Object preview on the Layers panel. I'll go to Adjustments and Brightness Contrast, set brightness to 70 and save my image. Now we can see that the Smart Object is working without any errors. We can tab between the two documents and whatever edits we make on the PSD file will be instantly visible on our main image, thanks to the Smart Object feature. The Move tool is an essential part of Photoshop and one of the easiest to use. However, there's more than meets the eye. One thing to always make sure of is having a layer selected that you'd like to manipulate. Select your layer and click the Move tool, or use the keyboard shortcut V as in Victor. A bounding box with little handles appear around the image. We can use these handles to resize our image on this layer. When we grab one of the handles holding the left mouse button down and dragging, the image size follows the cursor, but you can see the image does not follow proportions. For that, you need to hold the Shift key down while dragging. When you got the desired size, simply let go and hit Enter or Return to commit, or again, you can use the check mark on the top toolbar. Similarly, just like the name of the tool suggests, you can move layers around by dragging. There are sub-functions when you hold Shift. In this case, the image will only move along vertically, horizontally, or diagonally, giving you precise control when you need it. The Move tool also has other functions when you hold Control or Command and Alt option on Mac. We need to create some text content, and the Type tool is just for that purpose. When you add new content to a document, almost always you want it on a new layer. The Type tool creates a new layer for us automatically. Select the Type tool from the left tool palette and left-click on the general area where you want your text to be. Notice the new layer is added to the Layers panel with an icon indicating the type of layer. Now we can begin typing our content. In my case, I need multiple lines of text, so I'll press Enter or Return to create a new line. If you need to move the text around, you can do so by dragging with the left mouse button anywhere off the text. Notice the icon changes to arrows when this feature is available. We can manipulate many properties of this text. All of the functions require the text to be highlighted. In my case, the text is too small and the vertical spacing between the lines is not to my liking, so we'll go ahead and change this. Highlight the text and open the character properties by clicking the button with the letter A on it, or go to the window menu and click Character. We need to change two things here, font size and leading, but not uniformly. We'll play with this a little bit because the size and leading needs to vary per line for me. Also, we're going to make sure that all of the text is aligned to the center by going to the Paragraph panel and clicking the middle icon, much like in other popular software. Now we can highlight line by line and set the font size and leading to our liking. Note that the text layers are in vector format, which means we can scale the size and other properties without losing sharpness and detail. This is because vector-based layers use mathematical algorithms to store information, unlike a raster layer which is based on pixels. This is why we will add our effects first while the text is still a vector. When we're ready to commit these changes, we can either click off the active document area or, as always, hit the checkmark icon below the menu bar. Now you may ask, why didn't we create a separate layer for each line? A good general pointer in Photoshop is to keep the number of layers to a minimum and preserve editability as much as we can. We're also going to apply colors to the text, so having it on one layer is a good time-saving advantage. The layer panel shows our layer order and types of layers we're working with, but it has another robust feature, layer styles. We're going to use layer styles to add color to our text. Double-click the text layer on the empty area. Notice if you don't click the empty gray area, you'll rename the layer, but that is not what we want to do in this case. The layer style window opens. These options will change the way our text looks like while preserving editability. We're going to add a gradient to the text to make it blend better with our background image. A gradient is at least two colors blending into one another, as you'll see in a moment. In the Layer Style panel, click Gradient Overlay. The box gets checked and you're now looking at the properties of the gradient. We need to change the colors and the angle. Click on the color box next to the gradient label. A gradient editor appears. Here we can specify our colors. There are 4 color handles on the gradient color line, 2 on the left and 2 on the right. The top 2 have to do with opacity, which we'll leave as is. The bottom 2 are the colors we'd like to fade in between. Click the bottom left square handle, the color option on the bottom gets enabled. Click the color box on the bottom and a picker appears. Now we can manually pick our colors, but I'd like to blend with the colors of the background image, so I'll hover over the document where the cursor becomes a color picker. You may have to move windows around so you can see your color. We'll choose this yellow color as one side of our gradient values and make it a bit brighter manually. Then click OK and repeat the process for the orange color, making it brighter and clicking OK again. Now in our gradient editor, we can see the transition between our color values. We can also see the changes on our text layer in our document. We want the gradient to change colors from left to right, not up to down. We can change this using the angle wheel. Adjust the wheel to 0 degrees, this will accomplish this change. One more thing we'll add to our text is a stroke. Stroke is used to add a line around the border of our characters. Click Stroke on the Layer Style panel. This brings up properties of this feature. The stroke is too thin at 1 pixel, we'll change this to 3. You can see the changes live on the document. We'll change the fill type from color to gradient. Now we can repeat the same steps as before with the gradient, but we'll choose green and purple as the color values. When we're done, we can click OK on the Layer Style window. Notice that in the Layer panel, our effects appear under our layer. We can turn them on or off using the eye icons here. Everything we've done so far is editable at any time. If we'd like to change color, edit the text or effects, it's all editable. We're almost done, but we'll add a couple more images to this design. As one of the final steps, we'll add a palm tree on the bottom row of text instead of the letter I. For this, we're going to rasterize our text layer. Rasterizing turns our layer into a pixel layer, so we cannot edit our text after this step. Rasterized layers lose quality when scaled or modified because they store information directly as pixels, but by now we should have our text perfectly sized and colored, so we can go ahead and do this. Right-click the text layer and click Rasterize Type. We can tell the difference right away from the icon on the Layers panel. We can edit this just like any other layer from this point on. Next, we'll import a couple more images to add to this design. Let's go back to Adobe Bridge. We'll grab the splash.png file and import it. We'll commit the selection and resize the image to be about the size of the letters in the middle of the line. After resizing, we have to commit the transformation again, like always, with the Enter or Return key or the check mark. Drag the selected layer on top of the text and double-click the gray area on the Layers panel to bring up layer styles again. This time, we'll change the blend mode. Blend modes are used to determine how layers blend with one another. It's easy to understand once you've browsed through them. We can select Multiply from the drop-down box next to Blend Mode. You can see the change immediately on your document. We can optionally adjust the opacity. This dictates how visible a layer is going to be. We need a couple more of these layers, so I'll do this by duplicating our splash layer. To duplicate a layer, hold Alt on Windows or Option on Mac and simply click your layer and drag. With the Move tool, we'll rotate this layer a bit so we avoid looking repetitive. We can do this step one more time and drag a third copy to another spot. Notice that now we have 3 layers on our Layers panel. We can combine these by selecting all 3, right-click on one of them and select Merge Layers. This step merged and rasterized all of the images into one. Less clutter, happy designer. Now let's grab another image element from Bridge, this time star.png. Commit the import and drag the shiny star image to the desired position. This one was fast. Now let's go to the final step, adding our palm tree and replacing the letter I on the bottom row. Though it has a scary name, this is just a selection tool in disguise. First, let's select our rasterized text layer, then click the rectangular Marquee tool or hit M on the keyboard. This is the second tool from the top on our tool palette. Now we can draw a selection just around the letter I and click Delete or Del. This removed the selected area permanently. Now we can import our palm tree from Bridge. After placing the imported image, notice the palm tree is not cut out, it's on a white background. We'll use the Magic Wand tool to remove the white from the image. Since the imported image is a smart object, we need to rasterize it first. Now we can select our Magic Wand tool, the 4th tool from the palette, or by hitting W on the keyboard. Note that tools with a little triangle next to them in the tool palette are stacked. If you hold the left mouse button on them, other related tools pop up. This is true for all tools in Photoshop CC except the Zoom tool. With this tool selected, let's click the white part in our palm tree. This will select all of the white in the image. Always make sure you have your layer selected that you're working with. I say this a lot because it's the most common mistakes beginners do in Photoshop, not understanding what is happening. Layers need to be selected always. You can see the selection after clicking the white area and we'll simply hit the Delete or Del key to remove it. We're almost there. As the final couple steps, we'll make sure the palm tree looks the same as the text. We could do this manually, but there is a faster way. Right-click our text layer on the Layers panel and click Copy Layer Style. All of our parameters we set before, like gradient and stroke, are now copied onto the clipboard. Now right-click the palm tree layer and click Paste Layer Style. Now our palm tree has the same effects as our text. We can use the Move tool to drag the palm tree where the letter I used to be and resize it to the desired size. You may notice purple lines appearing. These are automatic guides Photoshop helps you with for more precise layout design. As the very final touch-up, maybe we can go into the layer style of our palm tree and reduce the stroke to 2 pixels and set the position to outside from the drop-down menu. Now the palm tree looks wider and more pronounced. There we go, our image is now done. This document will be used online, so we'll save it as a JPEG. Click File and select Save As. Choose JPEG from the drop-down list, name your image, then click Save. Before the file is saved, a JPEG options window appears where you can fine-tune your compression. The more compression, the smaller the image. Use the quality slider. In this case, we'll choose maximum quality. If you click the preview checkbox, your document will show the amount of compression applied and the output image size. When we're ready, we'll hit OK. We also want to save our work in a layered PSD file so we can edit it at a later time if we so choose. Repeat the Save As process, but this time choose PSD. Notice that the Layers checkbox is available and checked this time, unlike on the JPEG image. You are now a proud owner of an image you made in Photoshop. I hope it wasn't too difficult and got you interested in using your newly learned skills. This concludes episode 1, the absolute basics of Photoshop in practice. If you have ideas, corrections, or inquiries, please use the comments section. If you think others may benefit from this knowledge, please share the video. Hit this subscribe button right here for more content. Like or dislike as necessary. I'm Victor Savell. Keep it locked to VSGFX.